Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, we continue our 7-sermon series on the 7 angels. Been practicing in the book of Revelation. And today we continue with the third message from the third angel to the third church, which is in today, present-day Turkey. So we first learned of Ephesus, which was a message to those who are most motivated by truth. The message from the angel was to love more, to be more charitable. The message to Smyrna, number 2, the city of Smyrna, was that love was the motivating force in the city there, in us. And we need to learn more. We need to think more, discern more from the Word and from our conscience. And today, I lift up the angel of Pergamos. What stands out as you look at this image? Anything stand out to you?
The stone in the hand.
Yeah. Thank you, Ian. The stone in the hand. And one thing that it's a beautiful white glowing, what some theologians would say is a stone. And many theologians have, based on their research, they have come up with the very best educated guess as to what this white orb actually symbolizes, which you have in your hand. And what you may not see, which may not be evident from your seat, and depending on how good your eyesight is, but we have this angel holding a shield in the left hand, which normally would be raised. This is a warrior spirit. But the shield is down, and the white orb is in the center where the heart and the chest plate is. What would this white orb symbolize? Now we know that in the scripture it teaches us about the power of spiritual name. But the best news of all is that this orb, based on the educated guesses of those who know theology and do research, the best guess is that it symbolizes freedom. Where does the freedom come from? Well, let's explore that in the meaning of the message from the angel to the city of Pergamos. I'm just going to put this down now. Those who have an ear, let them hear what the Spirit is saying to the churches. That is what we hear with each angel. So we're being asked first and foremost to listen. Not out of fear. These angels are not bringing a message of fear. They're bringing caution and protection. And don't we need that today? I think it was Gerard who came up and prayed for all of us. Several of us did that. So this angel says, I know where you are living. It's not a real happy message right there starting out. What does he say, this angel? You're living where Satan's throne is. Yikes! It gets your attention, doesn't it? What is the main message of the city of Pergamos, which is us? It's not them. This is where we get sometimes. It's okay. The message ultimately is one of hope and freedom. But it's us. When we love anything and everyone but God, the Creator. When we love, I'm going to say it again, anything and everything but God, and, this is very particular to Pergamos now, anything and everything but God, and we deceive ourselves, we trick ourselves in our thinking. We do it every day. Every day. It's not like some big horrible thing. It's a dynamic in us. We trick ourselves into thinking that we do know God when we are loving everything and everyone else but God. That's a lot to take in. What's an example of that? Money. Money is not bad if it's used for good ends. But we put a lot into that, don't we? Things, even education. We can use our education and it can use us. Pergamos, what we're really talking about, this is the helpful warning of this angel. And here's that big old Christian word, idolatry. Worshipping idols. That's the warning. And it seems to be that it is, according to the message here, a pretty dark, low place we get into, where we think something else other than the divine itself, that beautiful, wonderful, just, loving, wise spirit, gentle, forgiving spirit, we lose it. We lose sight. We have to keep awake. Because the angel is saying, you're loving all these things and your relationship to these things is empty. Your relationship to everything but God and everyone but God, to think that drugs and alcohol will make you happy, to think that one other person will make you happy, another human being will be everything to you and make you happy and at peace, to think if you have every bit of clothing or the right vehicle, to think if you have a beautiful big house, you'll finally have arrived, to think that your candidate will win. Yeah, all right, Ian, woo! All of these things, to think that your church is the right church, that's tricky. That's tricky. So the point about Pergamos for us is putting any sort of deep happiness or purpose or joy in anything other than the source of it. And we do it every day. I do it. If I get discouraged, if I start to lose hope or I feel too negative, it's amazing the attention and the relationship we have with negativity. Oh yes. We have a very intimate relationship with negativity. And that becomes our idol. And that's when we're in Pergamos. That doesn't mean that we're awful and condemnable. It just means we're in that city and the angel is speaking to us now. And guess what? To the degree that we go low, we go high. So the message, according to Emanuel Swedenborg, is if we belong in Pergamos and we're hearing that message, the message is actually one of hope, that we're actually the opposite. And so the only way we get out of the mire of our idolatry and superficiality, the only way is three things. Number one, seek the Word of God. Seek the Word of God. We heard Theron reading it this morning. But what he actually reads and what you hear, that's up to God. I guarantee you that every one of us in this room heard something a little bit different. Because God has got you tuned in, and the Word is living. And so every time you turn to what is living, you will be touched and you will gain in what you need. If you're from Ephesus in any given day, you'll be given more love. If you're in Smyrna, you will be guided to understand more truth. If you're in Pergamos, what will you be told? By the Word, if you turn to it. Turn back to me. Come back. Return. Return to me, the one who is God of love, of peace and forgiveness and mercy. Come home. You're looking out there. You're looking out there for what you think will make you happy. So that's number one. Turn to the living Word. The second point, the second tool, if you will, is to search for the knowledge of God. Look for enlightened spiritual perspective. That's what our new outreach program is all about. When we meet at the Church of Coney Island, it's wonderful. And I really thank all of you who come and support the new people who come, because this is the second suggestion that Emmanuel Swedenborg gives us. Search for the knowledge of God. Search for enlightened spiritual perspective on your path. It may be in the scriptures, it may be a writer who inspires you, it may be a book that you're reading, it may be something that a friend speaks to you and your whole perspective changes. Search for a spiritual perspective, search for the knowledge of spiritual wealth. And the last thing is what Jenny was singing with Tom playing. And I don't think she knows at all that I was going to suggest this from Swedenborg's writing, which is turn. Turning we come round right, when true simplicity is gained. To bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turn, turn will be our delight. Turn around. Turn toward the light. When that boy was clasping my hand and wanted to live, turn to God and let Him guide you. This message to the Pergamos people, which is us, is an intriguing message. Because again we see that the arch enemy of spirituality is not evil itself. This little sidebar, evil has no power when the light is next to it. The arch enemy of spirituality is not evil itself, it is superficiality. And superficiality is not about our relationship to the essence of a thing itself. Superficiality is about our relationship to something on the outer surface. It's what we let use us. What do we use to have a false temporary perception that we're happy? And there's so many things that can trick us. We trick ourselves. And so, the arch enemy of spiritual living, of spirituality itself, is that tendency to put God out there in things that are surface. Look at Jesus' most harshest words were not to the prostitutes, whose outer life was in shambles, hurting herself, hurting others, mostly hurting herself. His harsh message was the most harsh to the Pharisees, who not only were shallow, but they were self-righteous. So they said, we know God, but they were loving everything but God. They were loving the law in its surface meaning only. And that's the two-edged sword. I mean, this is a pretty tough message. It's the most dire of the three so far that we've heard. And I love this church. I love this perspective because we send a message of hope. We send a message of forgiveness and unity and oneness with all people. And this message is really not about the two-edged sword hurting. It's really a message about protection. Fight for us, Lord. And there's so much hope if we can only believe, if we choose to believe. Now remember, this is the most dire of all the messages so far. And it's pointing, this is why we asked Reverend Theron to read from Exodus, which is the first commandment. And this is really the idolatry that we're talking about in this particular city, in us. It's really about that first sacred commandment. You shall love the Lord your God, who is one, with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and you shall have no other gods before me. That's bingo, number one. And so we'll close this message answering the question, why? Why does the one God say, don't have any other gods but me, worship me alone? Is this some young spirit saying, worship only me, I'm the best? No. Why does God say, worship only me and no other idol? Because of the qualities of God. They are so wonderful. What are the qualities? Rattle them off. I want to hear you say them. What are the qualities of this one God that we're reading and learning about? Loving, caring, forgiving,
Patient.
Put my orb over here. Forgiving, faithful,
Patient.
patient.
The only thing that you won't either lose or have it go away from you.
Say that again?
Like, the only thing that won't leave you. Like,
Faith-
you won't turn your back.
Loyal.
You won't turn your back, yeah.
Loyal. Very much so. He will never leave you. Beautiful.
Protective.
Beautiful.
Somebody say
Wise
protective.
guidance.
Wise.
That's good. Protective.
Protective, protecting, protective. Yes.
Not overly.
Not overly. Definitely lets us get into shambles. We get into, he protects us, but we do wander into thickets, don't we? Anybody get stuck in a thicket lately? Yeah. But he comes and finds you. Did you say something?
Patient.
Patient. Now look at all of these beautiful qualities. So it's so important when we're relating to people outside of our specific theology. It's so important to remember that the one God that is saying worship only me and no other, it's important to understand who it is that's saying this. Forgiving, kind, loving, loyal, protecting. This energy and intelligent, sentient life that's moving in all of us is who's saying that. And so the caution is, don't get stuck in temporary fixes. Don't get too strong into a relationship with your negativity and your complaining. Don't get too much into things. And don't get too much into what you don't have. Because you have everything already right here. And he's saying, I call you by name. And when you really know the truth of this, who it is, and whose it is that you belong, to whom you belong, then you're free. And that's why this angel, who is a warrior spirit, is holding the orb, which represents freedom from all the things that enslave you. Because ultimately, your idols enslave you, and you are not free. You are not free when you tie and have a deep, intimate, loving relationship with negativity.
That's
Isn't that something? When you feel hopeless, when you feel afraid, and you feel like the ship is going down, and all of a sudden, the Coast Guard steps outside the Coast Guard wall, and he hears your cry. This orb that you hold as a reminder is the name that you are given when you are free. So, keep it with you, keep it in your pocket, keep it in your purse, keep it anywhere on your, if you have a little altar at home. And ask yourself, let it be a stimuli to remember that you have a sacred name. And that in that quality that is you, there's your freedom. You're free from the things that you can't control, the things you can't fix, the things you can't figure out. And it's a reminder that there's so much more to you than your surface.
In other words,
One sec, you raise your hand 10
Yeah,
minutes
well,
ago.
yeah, you mentioned superficiality. When I think of superficiality, I think of plasticity, plastic.
Ah,
And the word plastic, pull as tick. In other words, I think the
Yes.
problem we really have is we're up in our heads. I mean, I
Yeah.
agree with everything you say,
yeah,
but I think people, it's a reflex. Like when I get angry,
Yeah.
I get angry before I even realize it.
yes.
So that's the problem I think a lot of us have. I mean,
Yeah.
I have it.
Yeah. And that reactivity, we over time, when we search for the living word and we ask to turn toward the Lord, over time, we gain patience and strength to pause.
Yeah.
Yes, Gerard.
in other words, don't fall in love with the cause you're fighting for. Is that what it means?
It can. It depends on your relationship to the cause. It really does. And that's why, in the Bible it says, there's a name that only you hear. And the reason that only you hear it is because whatever it is that you attach yourself to that is an idol, and it can be 100 different things. But ultimately, the one life that we call God or the Creator or the Spirit that moves through all things, ultimately, we alone hear our voice, hear that voice in our head, and we hear the message, we hear the name that we're given. And we alone, with God's help, know if we're making that cause or that thing an idol, and it may very well be the opposite. It may be that we're believing and acting for a cause that is a very high good. In which case we will know if we're quiet and we listen. Remember what it says. It says, those who have an ear, let you hear what the Spirit is saying to the churches. So it's really about listening. What your relationship to in your life, the causes, the things, the people, the attitudes that you carry. Only you know, because we must listen. What relationship is it? Is it an idol, or is it the one God with all those beautiful qualities that you named? Because ultimately, the one life that God is asking us to follow and be loyal to are all those beautiful virtues and qualities that we so love and cherish. That's God.
May I make a suggestion, Reverend Ruby?
Yeah.
I'm thinking about all of our friends out in virtual church.
Yes.
Virtual church, who
Yes.
may be like, oh, I can't see those pictures clearly enough.
Oh.
Could you take that, Angel, and zoom in close here so they can get a
Tell me
good
where.
look at it? Yeah, I'll tell you how close to come. A little closer, getting warmer. Okay. And then I'm also thinking of the first two, maybe from the last 2 weeks. Let's hold those up real quick.
Okay. So that was Pergamos. Okay, here's Ephesus. This is the first angel that's speaking to Ephesus. Is that close?
Maybe twist it a little bit to the glare from the window,
Like
and then
that?
back this way. Okay, other way.
Okay.
Okay, right there. Now come in a little closer. And raise it up a little bit. Okay, good. Perfect.
All right. And then what was the second church? Smyrna. Where is Miss Smyrna?
It's not one of these two.
Okay. That's Sardis. I think it is Smyrna over there.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, with the crown.
The writing is so... A little closer. Okay. Thank you.
And we'll do that with each angel.